All right, luckily for us, luckily for not only us, just in the media here, but also the Carolina Panthers fan community. Luckily for you all, luckily for the Carolina Panthers, one game in the preseason does not define the entire season.
Thank goodness.
Well, thank goodness, okay? Because when you look at, for example, a 17-3 loss against the Patriots, you might be like, it might just be more of the same, Jeff.
Listen, I mean, it was ugly.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was ugly. And I mean, and I know you had a third-string quarterback who may not even be on the team playing, but still.
Mm-hmm.
And that leads me to, my biggest beef with week one of the preseason was, I watched a lot of games, and because it's football, football's back.
True.
But, I watched a lot of games, and, 95% of the teams – played their starters.
Didn't play their starters.
They did.
Oh, they did?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, there were, well, I don't know if it's that high, but there were a lot of teams that played starters.
A lot of teams that did, and, you had the Hall of Fame game where people didn't.
Well, I mean, the Hall of Fame was, it's that extra game, but there were a lot of teams that played their offense at least, one or two series.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think the Patriots did.
Right.
But there were teams out there that did. Listen, the Panthers, your last two games of last season, I don't think you put any points on the board.
Mm-hmm.
I think you were 0-0 the last two games.
Yeah.
And now you go into the preseason, and game one, you score 3 points.
Yeah.
So if I'm a Panthers fan, I'm like, here, what is there to be excited about?
Right.
0. You're at a point where, at least you should have played a series or two.
Yeah.
I mean, get Bryce Young out there, play, even if it's playing against the third stringers, or guys that won't be there, on Sundays come, 2-3 weeks from now. Get some confidence. Get some game condition.
Yeah.
Game conditions that you're playing in. That training camp's training camp, but get out there, get some. I know Leggett was. I think his knee or his leg or whatever. Messed up. We probably won't see him now till week 1, but.
Yeah, it's one of those things, and I do want to tell you guys that the starters for the Keep Prowling podcast, we here, okay? We're here. Welcome in to the Keep Prowling podcast. we was going right into it. Jeff Taylor,
we're excited.
I'm your host, DJ Beal. And look, there's nothing wrong with being excited about football.
Right.
I mean, high school football is coming up. We know college football is coming up.
Yep.
And the NFL is right around the corner. Right after that. So, it's one of those things because, and you made a good point, and I almost love to start the show with a little bit of conversation because it kind of gives a little peek into what we want to talk about. And speaking of the starters, yeah, I kind of had the same question, Jeff. I really did. I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, because thinking back to years past where there was 4 preseason games.
Right.
A lot of times, the starters would play the first. They might not play the first game, but they would play like the second, third, and fourth, a little bit, and it would gradually get.
And
more
in the fourth, they're playing almost a whole half.
Yeah. So So and depending on who if it's a rookie or something like that, they might play the whole game. It just depends on what they still want to see.
Right.
So it's like, it's weird because they've shortened the preseason, probably in a little bit of an effort to lengthen the regular season by another game.
Sure, agreed.
But at the same time, it's like I was a little bit surprised too because especially with a shorter preseason, I expect, and I don't know about you all out there, but I expect to see at least a series from the guys. Right?
Absolutely.
One series from Bryce and the guys, see what they got, see what this new look offense is going to look like, and then as you transition to the second string, the third string, then you might see a little bit lesser.
Right.
Comparable because the Patriots were going to sub in their second string if we're talking hypotheticals here. So, and I don't get it.
Well, and, you hear, you got to say, let's protect from injuries and stuff like that. People get injured in training camp.
Yeah.
All the time. People get injured in one-on-ones, 7-on-7s.
Yeah.
Red zone, they get hurt in training camp. So to say, we don't, stop. And, and if there's any indication of how the Panthers season's going, you only score 3 points. Mm-hmm. And then you fly home and your plane runs off the runway. We don't want Bryce Young to get hurt on the field. But your plane's going to run off. Your plane's going to run off the runway. It's like, so I just, and if you're Dave Canales, sure, you don't have to. – nobody does. Nobody opens up their entire playbook, during the preseason. Yeah. but give them a little game action. Give them a little momentum. If Bryce Young goes out there and goes 6 for 6 for 45 yards and scores a touchdown, people are having a much different conversation about the Panthers.
That's true. And I think, that devil's advocate to that would be, the injuries. And maybe this, we've seen around the league other teams get completely derailed. Their entire season get derailed because of the preseason due to injury. So maybe the first game you take it with a grain of salt and you say, we're going to let Bryce Young sit and watch, maybe the veterans, maybe the young guys. We're going to let him sit. We're going to let him kind of maybe even coach on the sidelines.
Right.
And then the next game we give him a little bit more. But like we said before, the tough part is it's not like it's 4 games anymore, right? It's 3 games now. So, and because it's 3 games, that means you only get a couple of snaps over the course of 2 games now.
Right.
And that, you got the joint practice with the Jets later on, in a couple weeks now. And it's like, yes, you'll get a chance to be right there with Aaron Rodgers and maybe even learn a little bit from him while you're out there. But it's like, and it's hard because Bryce Young was kind of thrown to the wolves last season.
Oh, agreed.
Right? But to see this new offense and what this new offense is going to look, these new wrinkles that Canales is going to try to put out there, I think we're all a little eager to see how much better this offense can get, especially with some new talent here and there too. So I think there's a lot to be there's a lot to question with the decision, but at the same time, I think we may get to see plenty of it. Like, I'm struggling with it myself because it's like.
So let me go to my.
I don't know.
Let me go to everybody out there knows. Let me go to my Titans.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, brand new coach and Brian Callahan.
Yeah.
So game 1, the starters played 2 series.
Yeah.
They scored 2 touchdowns.
Right.
And at the end of the press conference, Brian Callahan's like, "It was my first game, preseason. We got to win."
Yeah.
A win is a win. A win can do a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, I'm going, oh, yeah, I mean, preseason or not, you want to win.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you do. And I know fans will say, it's just preseason, blah, blah, blah. But you're having a much different conversation had they gone out there and Bryce Young led 2 drives and they won, 21-17.
Yeah.
It's a different conversation, and I think the Panthers are not in a spot where they can take certain things for granted, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think that, I listened to talk radio coming in on the Monday morning after the first, a game against the Patriots. And, hum and drum, here we go, like not one Panther fan.
That's what I heard coming to the office too.
That seems exciting.
And that's why I started with that. Like, is it going to be more of the same? Not because I feel that way, but that's just what I'm hearing.
I mean, right now, you tell me, for the Panther fans listening, and stuff and following along, tell us why tell me if you got confidence right now.
Yeah.
I mean, you got the Jets rolling in, Saturday night?
Mm-hmm.
So the Jets are Saturday night. I haven't heard a game plan yet. I'm assuming they're going to play their starters. I would hope, but we'll see.
And I think, too, I think there's a difference, and I think that's the struggle I have with not playing starters. Now, albeit, going back to the Ravens' perspective of it, they've had seasons derailed because of the preseason. But they also have a quarterback in year 7.
Right.
So it's a little bit different for Joe Burrow, for Lamar Jackson and those guys, for Deshaun Watson. Like, maybe you don't need to play all those.
Right. Aaron Rodgers probably won't play till game 1.
Right. Especially considering how his season started and ended.
But you take, but here's the gist. Even with the season C.J. Stroud had last year, he played the opening game. I think he went 6 for 6 and drove him downfield and scored a touchdown.
Yeah.
You had C.J. Stroud go at it.
Yeah.
You had Anthony Richardson come out.
Mm-hmm. You got to build
People
a little bit
right,
of
exactly.
Even if it's just in a couple series, a couple throws, you got to build a little bit of confidence.
And even if it's against third string, at least you give your young quarterback who had a horrible season some confidence, going in. I mean, if they go the next 2 games and it's a disaster, what is your, and
then you go back to the decision to not play the starter. Like, let's just say that they come out in the next 2 games, and hypothetically speaking, it's a complete disaster from the first team offense, then everybody's going to look back at the first game and be like, well, if you would have had a couple extra reps in the first game, you could have learned from that and then came back.
You can't, and and there are people who are, and I think the gist is this, and you brought up a good point with now the 3 games instead of the 4. I've heard now that we have 3 preseason games, and a lot of people will go, well, week 1's kind of still like your 4th preseason game. You're really not into it yet. Mm-hmm. No. I mean, that's what makes the NFL or football. You don't have 145 games.
Yeah.
You don't have an NBA schedule or a Major League Baseball schedule. You have 17 weeks to get the job done. Mm-hmm. And every game is important.
Yep.
So if you have some momentum going into the Saints week 1, I mean, at least there's – but now, you mentioned getting hurt and stuff. The Vikings,
yeah.
I mean, now, J.J. McCarthy played pretty well in the first preseason game, along with, a lot of the other ones. Bo Nix, I mean, all of them just kind of was like, wow. But your season now rests on Sam Darnold.
Yeah.
So there's the other side of the coin where people were excited about J.J. McCarthy, and now all of a sudden – that's right, Minnesota?
Yeah,
so now all of a sudden –
because technically he was the second-string quarterback on the depth chart at the time, but he was proving himself.
Listen, were they going to take their chance with J.J. McCarthy, who's played pretty well in the preseason, or give it to Sam Darnold, who is really proven nothing?
A journeyman
yeah,
at this
right,
point, yeah.
Exactly. So I get it, but I think for the Carolina Panthers, you gotta play and give them some confidence.
Yeah, I think – kind of like you just said, and that is the other end of the argument. And that's why I feel like injuries matter to a certain degree, because if, let's flip it on its head, and if Bryce Young's in that situation, he's playing well, and then he gets hurt, then you're talking about taking the wins out of everybody's sails.
Right, no, I mean...
And I mean, I've heard some people say that Andy Dalton's the best quarterback on the roster, right? Compared to Bryce Young. So it just depends on what you think.
I think you got to go back to, and it's easy for me to make references, so Panther fans, I apologize, but you take a Ryan Tannehill and Marcus Mariota.
Yeah.
Marcus has now become really irrelevant. I mean, I hate to say it. Mm-hmm. But, and Ryan came in and was the better quarterback. The older guy who gets the job done and stuff like that.
Yeah.
He also had Derrick Henry in the backfield.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, I think Bryce Young is I think he's the better quarterback. I think he has the bigger upside. It's just but go back to you talk about we live in a world where anything can happen any day.
Yeah.
Cam Newton rolled his truck.
Yeah.
Going to coming home from practice.
Yeah.
I mean, you can get hurt in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
And I just think Bryce is at a point where he needs the reps, he needs the game action, and he needs to get some confidence.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be the biggest thing is the confidence aspect of it too. And going, speaking of another C word, chemistry, right?
Right.
Building,
exactly.
I think that's why a lot of teams play. They don't play a lot in the preseason, their starters, but they at least play a couple of snaps,
right?
Maybe a quarter or two when you get later on, because you kind of need, the old kind of adage with football, at least before, hitting became kind of a crime in the
right,
NFL.
Sure.
Was you really don't know until you get that first hit. You take that first hit, you take that first sack, and then you're kind of ready to play, because you're kind of it's throwing cold water on you in the morning when
right,
as opposed to your
right.
alarm.
No,
you're okay, I'm ready now.
Yeah.
All right, I got to get up now. I got to go. So I think Bryce Young needs to take that first sack. He needs to take that first hit just to shake off the cobwebs. It's been a long off season, especially for the Panthers. Because
who do you think's more excited as a fan base, the Panthers or the Bears?
The Bears. Yeah.
But technically, Caleb Williams has done nothing but go out and have he shined
in the NFL. He's done less than Bryce Young,
right?
Technically,
but he shined in the preseason.
Yeah.
And now people are like, that could be one of the most potent offenses and I'm a big believer in slow your roll.
Yeah.
It's preseason. But when you're talking about a fan base, they are fired up in Chicago.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say slow your roll and shut your mouth.
Well, listen, the Titans play in week 1. That I think it'll be a fun game or whatever. But I mean, but now also Caleb Williams has a much more lethal weapon. I think the weapons wise.
Yeah.
Now you're talking. You still got DJ. You got Rome. Can't remember his name. Odunze. The rookie.
Oh yeah.
He's got.
They still have Tyler Lockett? Is he still kicking it?
No, Tyler's in Seattle.
Oh, I'm thinking of I'm getting mixed up.
Oh, so you're in Seattle with DK Metcalf and stuff like that, and Geno,
that's
Geno Smith. Anyway, so there we go. But there's zero energy or excitement.
Yeah.
For the Carolina Panthers right now.
Yeah.
Zero.
I mean, and that's the thing. Like, the only thing that's been exciting is a couple of new hires.
Right.
But then the struggle with a couple of new hires is we don't know how short of leash they got with Tepper calling the big shots.
Right.
So, and I think that's the thing. Like, and I think that's why people are so excited just to see what the potential that the Panthers have, because we want something different.
Yes.
And the struggle that I have is, and it kind of begs a question that I just kind of thought of, as I was prepping for the show, is like, do you feel like Panthers fans have the same resiliency that like a Cleveland Browns fan base would have? Because the Cleveland Browns were bad for a long time.
Right.
Like 20 years.
Right.
Right? And the Panthers have been bad for 5 or 6 now, right?
Yeah.
And obviously you don't want it to get to the point of being where the Browns have been, but at the same time, I think sometimes I feel like one bad thing happens and Panthers fans are just like down in the dumps again. And it's like you have a new coach, you have practically still a new quarterback,
right.
You have new weapons around him, you've built this team around him, you have a good defense. And you're in a division where you can be successful.
Yeah, sure.
What's wrong with Panthers fans? Are they just frustrated by the history of it? Or is there a little bit of a lack of resiliency and they're not spoiled? I wouldn't say the Panthers fans are spoiled, but maybe they are a little spoiled from the successes of what Cam Newton brought. And the energy that he brought. And the kind of aura, is the big buzzword right now, that he brought.
No, I think it's...
Or is there something missing?
Well, no, I think the gist is this. Charlotte, to me, is one of the greatest cities in America. I've been here for 25 years and love it. There's no place on earth I'd rather live. I mean, I love it. Everything it has to offer, its location and everything like that. It is also a city that a lot of people move to. There are not a lot of native Charlotteans around, probably. Mm-hmm. Not that it was 30 years ago.
Right.
I mean, with the way the financial aspect of the businesses coming to Charlotte and stuff like that, there are a lot of transplants, and you can see that when you go to a Panthers game.
Yeah.
I mean, if the Giants come to town, the Jets come to town, the Steelers come to town. You know what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
And I think the thing becomes is when you take somebody like Cleveland, and I apologize to anybody, I don't know anybody who wants to move to Cleveland. Mm-hmm. At least I mean, it's a different.
It's a different field. Yeah.
Right, and I think that just becomes though when you have that generations and generations and generations of families living in a city, they grow to love their team no matter what.
It's like,
does that make sense?
It's almost like team patriotism,
right?
Like,
exactly. Exactly. You're. I mean, the Cowboys. I mean, you go with the. You want to go sit in Lambeau when it's minus 20 and stuff like that, but they sell out and they're crazy. Yeah. Of course, they've also had the fans buy into the team.
Yeah, which I think helps a little bit.
It's amazing. But the Steelers, I mean, all of it. There's this sense of, you said, patriot. I mean, that's the way it is. Mm-hmm. And I don't know that we're there, and I don't know that we will ever get there. Mm-hmm. I mean, you go to the NBA, you go to the Hornets. It's kind of the same deal.
Yeah.
And we're a basketball, I mean, North Carolina, I mean, when we talk basketball and stuff, but, you go throw Duke and NC State in the Spectrum Center, you can't find a seat.
Yeah.
So I think it's that sense of, I don't know that there's anything wrong with Panther fans in terms of anything like that. I think it's just that terms of like there's not as a core of fans
Yeah.
for the Panthers that there are with other teams in the NFL. And listen, Nashville's a prime example.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've been to Titans games.
Yeah.
And when I've gone to Titans games, I have been there, and there have been I remember I went and saw the Titans Jets. There were 60% Jets fans.
Yeah.
Or, there's, 50% Patriots fans.
Mm-hmm.
Because Nashville is a great city to go to.
Yeah.
But that fan base is very hot and cold.
Do you think that has anything to do with success as well? Like, so for example, like the Titans had success, especially in the 90s, especially in, the early 2000s.
Yep.
But if you haven't had a lot of success since then, look at Kansas City. I don't know a lot of people who are like, I'm going to go to Kansas City well, not even technically in Kansas City, but
right.
You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
And it makes me wonder, like, Kansas City has had a lot of success lately. Same thing with Boston, Massachusetts, right?
Right.
Like, but Boston also has passionate fans. Like, that's the
well,
other thing,
but
too.
also, go ahead. You mentioned the success part. Go ahead.
I feel like, and Kansas City, I think, is a prime example of it. I don't feel like Kansas City has the same kind of football swagger that maybe Green Bay has, or maybe even like Cleveland has in terms of like their fan base. But because they've been successful, they've almost like built up a little bit of that. They built up that fan base because a lot of new fans, they're like, oh, we like what Patrick Mahomes is doing. We like what the Chiefs are doing. We like what Andy Reid's doing. We like Travis Kelce and these guys.
I wholeheartedly agree. I think that just is, like.
If the Panthers were successful, I mean, I guess that's the long story short. If the Panthers were more successful, would more people gravitate towards?
I don't know that it's the success of the team as much as maybe who is on the team.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, and this is going to sound horribly bad. Like, to me, there are no relevant players on the Carolina Panthers.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean that in a mean way. Mm-hmm. But when you talk about the NFL and you talk about stars that are going to attract people to come and watch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's and a lot of that could be, just to ease the pain a little bit of what he just said, a lot of it could be they're still building their new stars right now. Like, for example, if Bryce Young comes out and has a CJ Stroud type season, he's a star.
Yes.
Ready-made, right?
Yeah.
Like if Xavier Legette has a DK Metcalf rookie year type season, he's a star now.
A.J. Brown type.
You know what I mean? Like it's one of those. Yeah, A.J. Brown's a good example too. It's one of those situations where, going back to the success aspect of it, because the Panthers haven't had really truly had that success, we wonder where those stars are. We know there's talent, right? We know they're a very talented team, but when it comes to putting it together, right now they're missing that piece. They might be just missing that guy with that little bit of dog in him because they haven't proven it yet.
Right. I go back and go, it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out with the Bears this year and Caleb Williams.
Yeah.
I mean, if he comes out, the problem was, here's the real rub too for the Panthers is obviously Bryce Young, CJ Stroud. Like, you could have but you didn't.
Right.
And
it's hard because it's not an apples to apples comparison.
Right.
Either,
Well, you flip them.
Yeah.
You flip them.
It's probably the same.
Would Bryce Young have led to the Houston Texans to the playoffs?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the thing. Like, I think if you flip him, I don't think CJ Stroud has nearly the season he had.
No, absolutely
in
not.
Carolina as he does in Houston. So it's like, and that's why I try to at least put it out there for people to understand that it's not just an apples and apples comparison that CJ Stroud for Bryce Young would have been match made in heaven.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
Because even Will Levis, for as impressive as he was, he didn't have a season like CJ Stroud
absolutely not.
Even in the sample size, even if you compare just sample sizes.
I mean, he had eight touchdowns, 4 interceptions, but 4 touchdowns came in the first game he played.
Yeah. So
but it still comes back to that, I don't know that it's the wins and losses as much as it is the guys on the field, because even though the Titans won 7-10 last year, you wanted to watch Derrick Henry.
Yeah.
You would go watch Derrick Henry play football.
Yeah.
Because you just knew the stud he was.
Yeah, I get it.
That
I don't want to get too much into expectations because the tough part about expectations is we haven't seen the starters yet. So do we have any? But I do want to mention, I want to ask the question to you all. I want to ask the question to you, Jeff. What do the Panthers need to do to have a successful season? Not even necessarily in a number of wins, unless you have one on the top of your head, but more so, because to me, when I think about it, and as you guys are commenting down below as well, enjoying the conversation, I feel like if the Panthers come out, and I don't want to just say play hard, but I want to say like almost like in an underdog way. They come out and they punch people in the mouth and they stun them a little bit.
Right.
If this offense can stun people a little bit, they're going to win some games simply off of that fact because people are not going to be expecting them to do so.
Right.
And, yes, in the past, Bryce Young has had a lot of talent around him, and now he has a little bit more of a talented cast. But I think for the Panthers to be successful this season, not only within the division, but more so on some of those tougher games, I think they're going to have to punch some people in the mouth. They're going to have to do similar to what was it the Bears against the Chiefs, where they kind of snuck up on them a little bit last year.
Right.
And, it propelled the Chiefs to a Super Bowl maybe, but at the same time, they snuck up on them a little bit, and they punched them in the mouth, and they played that kind of underdog, we have nothing to lose mentality.
Well, I think for me, if you look at the season and expectations and stuff, wins are wins. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
But, you lose 21-17 to, whoever. You lose 21-17 to the Chiefs. Yeah. Okay, that, I know I don't think they play the Chiefs, but put points on the boards. And I'd like to see Dave Canales in terms of the Panthers are not very good in one-score games.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't know how many games. They lost 3 or 4 last year in the last 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Where they either had a chance to win or a chance to stop somebody, and they didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Win those games.
Yeah.
I think for Panther fans this year, if you had 6 or 7 wins,
yeah,
but the offense is moving the football.
Yeah.
Bryce Young is, throwing for, 250 to 300 yards a game, and, the quarterback, the intercept, the offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
If the sacks drop so I think it's my middle son's in his second year of teaching here in Charlotte, and he put out on Facebook the other day, he goes, it's my second year. I don't want to say certain words. I'll just use progress.
Yeah.
I just want to, progress some as a teacher. I want to progress some as a program.
Yeah. Gotcha. Okay.
Let me just say this. But we're also in the NFL where I've seen people go from worst to first.
Yeah, that's true. And this is the division to do so.
In the NFL, listen, and we've seen it week after week, year after year.
Hate to say the Houston Texans again, but
the difference between playoffs and not, or a win and not, is minimal.
Yeah,
minimal. At what I'm getting at, and especially in that division,
mm-hmm.
where who knows?
Yeah,
Kirk Cousins, Atlanta, he can't be happy. He's got a freaking
he's got Penix bleeding down his neck
right, exactly. Tampa, it is what excuse me, it is what it is with, Baker.
Yeah.
Who's quarterback for New Orleans?
Derek Carr, but they're really looking into Spencer Rattler, I think.
Hey.
Especially since
Spurs up.
The J.J. McCarthy injury, too.
Right.
I've heard some trade rumors, actually, with that. So
Derek, that would be interesting.
But because they said Spencer Rattler has been looking really good.
Oh, no. Anyway. So, so I think for this year, just make progress and at least give people something exciting. Put points on the board.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so, too. And speaking of putting points on the board, maybe even doing a little more, in this space in terms of the kickoffs, because when the kickoff rule came out, I was a little confused by how they were going to pull it off. But now seeing it in play, it looks a little better to me. I miss the original kickoff. I miss how it was. I missed when they had it backed up enough to where people couldn't just boom it out the end zone every time. But in terms, I'm still a little confused. But in terms of adding a little more excitement possibly to the kickoff and it not just being a touchback every time, I think this gives it that.
As a 56-year-old old guy, purist of the game, I actually love it.
Really? Okay.
I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
I think it's not the fact that the Titans guy ran it back 65 yards on the first kickoff the other night.
It actually is.
Huh?
I think that's what it is.
But to me, the kickoff had become irrelevant.
Yeah.
Just because how many kickoffs there were? What? One might be run back?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, literally, one or two might be run back.
Yeah.
So at least this way, I think it adds excitement. And from what I saw watching the games over the first week of the preseason, and everybody's still trying to figure it out, I mean, there were teams that started at midfield.
Yeah.
A majority of them still started at like the 30.
Right.
But it basically, I heard a couple guys talk about going, listen, it's just a glorified running play.
Mm-hmm.
You got the guy kicking off, you got the guy returning.
Yeah.
But then basically it comes down to your 10 guys lined up 5 yards apart.
Yeah.
And as somebody who was a special teamer in middle school, high school, and college, I think it's cool.
Yeah.
Your kicker better be able to tackle.
That's true. Yeah.
Because if you got those 10 guys and there is a hole,
mm-hmm. It's going to the house.
I mean, and it really gives the advantage, I think, to the return team.
Yeah.
Because he's the only guy. I mean, if he's catching the ball on the fly,
mm-hmm.
Game on.
Yeah. I think too, my confusion is the whole why they moved it up was to create less kickoffs because they were worried about injuries, right?
Right.
But now this seems like it's going to create more kickoffs, which
would lead more injuries.
We're going to go full circle again with the injury.
I think they needed to add something, and I'm still not sure. And I need to go back and look at the rules. I don't even know I don't even know what onside look like anymore.
That's what I was wondering about.
I need to go back and look.
Yeah.
Fans, I don't know yet, but I don't know if it was like. I mean, I still I don't know what was it what's the league in the spring, the USFL or whatever it is.
Uh-huh.
But they did you have to complete you get the ball, but you have to complete a 4th and 15.
Yeah.
And if you complete it, then you get the ball.
Yeah.
But I mean,
I think that's another part of it too, and I hope that it has changed because that was another part of the game that kind of had went away was the onside kick.
Yeah.
It was an automatic. The kicking team
it's
gets
like
it back.
one out of every 500 or something.
Yeah, and it's like it was almost kind of cool just to see somebody actually successfully recovering onside kick.
Well, no, yeah.
But because it kind of you think back to the moments of like the Saints and the Colts in the Super Bowl and the kind of sneak onside kick. But also just like going back to where they could stack a little bit or something.
Right.
Just like even if you stack it evenly, something has to give with that too, because once you get to an onside kick and it's just automatic, what do you do?
And back to the injury part of it, you're playing tackle football.
Yeah.
Injuries are going to happen.
Yeah.
So to me, I like it. I think it's going to add some excitement to the game. I think you'll see some interesting kind of things take place. So I it's going to take a little while to get used to.
Yeah.
But it had gotten to a point where you didn't really.
You didn't really care.
I would always.
You go get your drink.
I go grab a beer. Right. That's exactly what I was going to say. I know the game's going to start in 3 minutes. I'm going to go grab a beer because I know the kickoff's going to happen.
Yeah,
so,
unless I hear some loud cheering.
Although that would be the one time I'd go get the beer and they would run it back, 90 yards for a touchdown. But we digress.
That's true. But I'm excited definitely for the season. I'm excited. Speaking of kind of high school sports, any big exciting things coming up?
I mean, yeah. Actually, Thursday the 22nd are the games at Bank of America.
Okay.
And then you've got you got the Kickoff Classic Friday night, that 23rd at Memorial.
Mm-hmm.
2 good games there. The Turf Kings Classic on Saturday. So yeah, next weekend that weekend. Yeah, and we're gonna do the Blitz again this year for year 2. So a little different though. Instead of streaming it will be linear.
Yeah.
So it's actually gonna be the second part of the WCCB News at 10. So Jack Taylor and I are looking forward to getting back out there on Friday nights, and it's football.
Can't wait to see it.
I was sitting there last night trying to figure out, okay, my 3 kids went to South Carolina, App, and Tennessee.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, Lori, what do we? Let's
Yeah.
figure out which games
You
we're
road
going to.
mapping?
I'm road
It out?
mapping. Got them all figured out. So yeah, it's we have football now until February.
Yeah, so it's always. I feel like I always kind of bring this up as we wrap up, but I always kind of bring this up. When the lockout season for the NBA pushed into the as much as I do like baseball, but when the lockout season pushed into the NFL season, I mean that was one of my favorite seasons right there because it was just like boom, 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 boom. It was we were going from start to finish. So it's definitely going to be a lot of fun. Can't wait for the Blitz as well. And I'm sure you got a lot of projects up your sleeve, even though it's short today. I know you got a lot of projects up the sleeve.
It's a lot going down. We've you got NASCAR, the CW on our station. So starting September 9th at Bristol, we show the last 8 races. So a lot going on with the CW in terms of sports. So
yep,
it's cool.
A lot of big things going on in the CW. A lot of big things going on right here in Charlotte as well.
But of course, we'll keep you updated on everything.
Yeah, definitely on BahakelSports.com, WCCB as well. We're gonna keep it all in the family most definitely. But definitely, Jeff, I appreciate you for coming by. It's always a lot of fun.
You got a partner?
I'm sure you'll be back in a couple weeks to do the true preview. Once we see the starters, once we see the starters, we'll give some true expectations.
We better see them this week or next week.
I'm not going to put the cart before the horse because I'm not saying I did that last year. I'm not saying I did, but I was chasing after the cart. Okay, I was definitely chasing after the cart, but definitely hope you guys enjoyed the show. Be sure to share the show as well. You can see it on or listen to it on all major podcasting platforms, and we'll see you guys on the next episode of the Keep Prowling podcast. Are there any Panthers topics that you want to hear us talk about? Let us know in the comments below.